Chapter 12. The War with No Dead. The Future of Geopolitics. We shall go on to the end. We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with a growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister of the UK. I am 1/4 British paratrooper. My paternal grandfather, Gordon, was in the Army Air Corps Red Beret and part of the team that famously made the airborne raid on Bruneval in late February 1942. This daring raid, called Operation Biting, aimed to gain information about the radar systems that the Nazis were using in northern France. Until then, the exact purpose and nature of the radar systems was not known. Operation Biting was a massive success, with troops bringing both technical parts and a captured German radar operator back to Britain to assist in the race to stay ahead with radar technology. Thinking about my plucky ancestor gives me strength and belligerence when facing my own challenges. My granddad used to go for extra jumps just for the cash and was unfortunately seriously injured during the D-Day jump into Caen. He suffered a life-changing head injury which left him with amnesia for at least a year. Like many of his generation, he never talked about the war. More's the pity. In the future, there will be fewer and fewer humans making up the troops on the front line and behind enemy lines. This brings me some comfort, but it also increasingly gives me worries about the safety and security of future generations. Warfare is evolving into something less visible to the public, and on many levels there are wars we are already fighting that most people don't hear about on the news. Cyber warfare has been going on for decades already. Worms, Trojans, bugs and bots all affecting our internet, our computers and our data storage systems. This is not traditional warfare, and it doesn't follow the rules of war or the Geneva Conventions. Sometimes it feels to me that the world is more connected than ever, and yet as individuals we are more disconnected than ever before. It's paradoxical that we can connect as unique people to other unique people, yet as societies we can sit and imbibe news every evening about another fall of government, another use of unethical or illegal weapons of war, another instance of human suffering, and be almost numb to it all. Have we been overexposed to war through traditional news media and new social media? Are we feeling unable to instigate any change ourselves, and so we sit with empathy fatigue, unable to help, unable to stop it, unable to convince politicians to see our world view? Are we all cried out, especially following the emotionally draining pandemic? Have we disconnected ourselves from the idea of going into battle a la D-Day because we now have robots, drones and AI to take the heat of the war instead? Robotic warfare. There are so many conversations happening around the world about the ethics of autonomous warfare. The stories being shared about defensive technical capability suggest that we may get to a place in my lifetime where humans no longer jump out of planes to do daring manoeuvres in the dark over occupied territory like my granddad Gordon. An expression that originates from military use and is now applied to all robotics, drones and AI-backed hardware is that new and emerging technologies are great for the dull, dirty and dangerous jobs, including in the theatres of war. Remotely piloted or automated hardware has been used for dangerous frontline combat work since World War II. The Russians and the Nazis both developed remote-controlled mini-tanks and demolition vehicles, and the design of this group of robots hasn't really changed. You can find counter-terrorism robots and drones that look a lot like the miniaturised versions of tanks developed 80 years ago. However, with the advent of soft robotics and bio-inspired engineering, there are some that are looking very different. DARPA developed a surveillance drone that could fly in all directions. They had effectively modelled it on a hummingbird. In some movies recently, there have been drones that are the size and form of small insects in order to conduct surveillance inside houses without detection. The capabilities of drones, robotics, and other automated or autonomous systems for warfare are diversifying and accelerating, with some also converging. The major problem with all new technologies is that the legislation and regulation is always lagging behind the actual technology, and so broad points of principle have to be established. For example, there is a growing call for a ban on all killer robots based on existing human rights legislation. Also known as the Martens Clause, this legislation could require all automated, autonomous, robotic emerging technologies to be assessed against the principles of humanity and the public conscience when they aren't already explicitly covered by other parts of human rights conventions. Countries are working collectively to create a ban on fully autonomous killer robots, but this requires open and honest collaboration and relationships, and current geopolitics might make it difficult to trust this process. Just as one cannot predict the future of the stock market based on past performance, we need to understand the concept of survivor bias in conflict, especially when it comes to autonomous and automated systems. One story that springs to mind is that of the Royal Air Force bombers coming back from bombing raids in World War II, during which they were shot at with anti-aircraft fire. The returning planes were examined to see where the bullet holes were, and some thought that where they'd been hit should be reinforced, so heavily reinforced bombers were sent back into the skies, never to return. The truth that was missed was that when planes had been hit where the bullet holes were, they could still fly back, but if they were shot in other areas, they didn't return. One of the surprise benefits to the Allies from the jump at Bruneval that my granddad did was that the Nazis started reinforcing their radar stations with more ground defences such as ditches and barbed wire. Ironically, this made them more visible from the air and therefore more easily identifiable as targets for bombs. When it comes to direct combat and conflict, how will future armies be trained? Will soldiers have exoskeletons? Will they have been picked using AI-backed mass surveillance of primary schools? Could they be bionic or genetically modified? Or all of the above? Some of the technologies that have been created to try to assist that most innocent of all human life, newborn babies, could be used in a military context. In a world in which premature birth is still the greatest cause of death and disability among children under 5, there are many people working to help those babies develop more before they enter the real, harsh world. Currently evolving artificial womb biobag technology will make out-of-body gestation a reality. Since 2017, this technology has successfully grown lamb fetuses that were cut from their mother by C-section and then placed in the biobag. What could this mean to a country that wanted to create mega armies? It could mean an army of soldiers with no mothers, whose parent is the state itself. The Truman Show meets The Matrix meets Never Let Me Go, with genetic modifications and bionic adaptations. The super soldier of 1980s sci-fi movies could very well be a reality this century. Cyber warfare. Some of the most insidious wars are happening online. Cyber warfare has been happening for decades. You may have experienced this on a personal level if you've ever been hacked on social media or had your identity stolen. The cost of cybercrime to the global economy has been estimated to sit at around $1 trillion annually, which is approximately 1% of global GDP. The most worrying thing about this data, though, is the trend, an increase of 50% between 2018 and 2020. When I was working a corporate job, I did the basic online training modules around cybersecurity and got the certificates, and I never thought I would be the person to slip up and click the wrong link in an email. Spam has certainly evolved since the Nigerian princes of the early 2000s needed my bank account details to transfer millions. Now some spam emails mimic utility bills and bank accounts really well. I was once sent a test email at work. It looked like a Valentine's card, but I was immediately suspicious. I didn't click on the link, but I hovered my cursor over it and saw the website name, which I then looked up on a search engine. It turned out to be a company that works to test your staff to see if they will click on silly links. I passed the test, thank goodness, because that would have been embarrassing. But really it is now my default to not trust emails from people I don't know, especially with links or attachments. There is now more spam content on the internet than real content. This means the managing of accounts and expectations on the internet has become more difficult and therefore more expensive. Some people think that working from home or remotely is the worst thing we could do for the cybersecurity of our personal and work systems, and yet many people had to during the pandemic. Cyber attacks aren't limited to emails or website viewings, they are also coming straight down the phone. I get a good few robot calls per week, and I never say hello first if I am unsure of the number, because I always want to check if there is someone there. Just like email phishing with the PH stands for password harvesting. Voice phishing can vary in terms of sophistication and can sometimes be threatening or to pretend to be from government agencies. Some are automated robotic processes, but other times actual human beings can be making the calls. Another scam now involves audio deepfakes. People get calls from the voice of a trusted individual asking them to do something. This shows just how far scammers will go and how much money they must be making to keep trying these things. Cybercrime might seem like it has nothing to do with warfare, but by targeting the most strategic industries, institutions, and essential assets, a successful cyber attack could cause more damage to an economy or political party than any direct conflict would. At the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, there were major cyber attacks on the universities and institutions working on the virus, and especially the laboratories working on the UK-based vaccine. We don't have 007, but rather code writers and AI that is data gathering in foreign countries now. I bet they don't even drink martinis. Information warfare. Another tactic is the subtle but effective use of information manipulation, aka information warfare. This type of warfare is the digitally evolved version of dropping flyers over enemy lines with demoralising content, or blasting information by stereo across the border, such as occurs between the Koreas. The bad news is that you have already been exposed to information warfare, even before any foreign agencies started funding anti-vaccine information in 2020. The core modus operandi of information warfare is to manipulate information that would normally be trusted by targets, people, businesses, or agencies, without their knowledge, causing confusion about what is real or not and eroding trust. Information warfare can also be used to test and verify the reach of the nefarious actors' actions, providing them with assurance of their influence and capability, like cartographers' trap streets on maps. The use of information warfare to spread propaganda, false information, and fake news really came to the world's attention during the 2016 US presidential election campaign, but that seems to be dwarfed in comparison to the false information being spread across traditional and social media about COVID-19. Science communication is hard at the best of times, and personally I believe if we had better STEM literacy, a lot less of the fakery would get through the filters and fewer people would share it. Unfortunately, it seems that misinformation and manipulation are well accepted by individuals, even during a global pandemic, when false words could cause the deaths of people swayed by them. Electromagnetic warfare. Electromagnetic warfare involves the use of the electromagnetic spectrum to block or destroy communications or radar systems. You may have heard it referred to as jamming someone's signal. It's been around for a really long time, and much research on it has been carried out in the communication dark areas of the Woomera Range complex in South Australia. Combine cyber warfare, information warfare, and electromagnetic warfare, and you create the need for people to prepare countermeasures, which means operations without technologies. Technology is being developed that mimics the navigation mechanism of birds by using the Earth's magnetic field and even using the stars in the sky for navigation. All military ships have the capability to navigate through traditional means of celestial navigation, using the location of the sun at midday, the stars at night, and a piece of old technology called a sextant. When it comes to combating and surviving sophisticated attacks of the 21st century, the best methodologies may be the oldest. War in space. Wars have been fought all over this planet. On the sea, in the air, on land, in homes, on the streets, and in our social media feeds. But what happens when we leave Earth? Does the international community expect all the human rights and laws of engagement to be replicated off-planet? Could we have a war in space? How about in the metaverse? Is that still deemed to be planet Earth? There are certain things we already know. We have robots that can drill samples out of asteroids, and now we have companies set up to mine asteroids for resources such as iron ore. We have a moon treaty from 1979 that was never ratified, just as we have a number of nations wanting to establish their own moon bases. On Mars, a number of exploratory robots are active on different parts of the planet. What could this all build up to? Planet Earth is a closed-loop system. We have finite resources and a culture of consumption and development that is hard to curtail. It certainly won't take long before the international treaties protecting places such as Antarctica from drilling and mining expire, and certain countries may not sign up to any new restrictions at all. What happens then? Do we go to war to protect Antarctica? On Earth, we have a shortage of helium, an element that is plentiful on the moon. So will we allow mining there? The moon affects our ecosystem. It controls our entire ocean ecosystem and a lot more. So changing it significantly through mining could have planetary ramifications. Then we get to Mars and other international space assets. How will we put humans on Mars? Will there be a desperate land grab like with the colonists of the past? Or will there be bidding wars for contracts to drill as with the resources industry? Would we go to war on Earth over rights on Mars and all the resources there? As the problem of resource depletion on Earth becomes more real, the idea of extracting valuable elements from asteroids and returning those to Earth for profit, or using space-based resources to build solar-powered satellites and space habitats, becomes more attractive. Hypothetically, water processed from ice could refuel orbiting propellant depots. Although asteroids and Earth are created from the same starting materials, Earth's stronger gravity pulled all heavy siderophilic, iron-loving, elements into its core more than 4 billion years ago. The crust only has such valuable elements as gold, cobalt, iron, manganese and nickel because asteroid impacts infused the depleted crust with them. It's believed that many asteroids contain such important elements. In 2006, the Keck Observatory announced that the binary Jupiter-Trojan asteroid 617 Patroclus and potentially many other Jupiter-Trojans consisted largely of water ice. Similarly, Jupiter family comets and possible near-Earth asteroids that are extinct comets might also provide water. Ice would satisfy one of the physical needs to enable human expansion into the solar system. Climate change and the world peace ideal. Resources, it seems, are one of the things humans are likely to go to war for, and on a planet that's facing a climate emergency, it's worth noting that countries have already gone to war over precious natural assets such as Ethiopia and Eritrea over water supply and access to transboundary rivers. When the first climate change refugees make moves to relocate, and when climate change has significantly negative effects on areas such as food production, pest control such as locusts, and water access such as in the Himalayas, that increase the number of people who are disaffected or needing to relocate, we are likely to see an increased geopolitical tension. Climate change will further accelerate and augment existing tensions between neighbouring countries over dwindling resources and growing populations. The climate war will not only pit Mother Nature against humans with increasing frequency and ferocity of extreme natural events, but also create new philosophical and political differences and ideologies within and between countries all over the world. One might take a more positive attitude towards war and peace and hope that, with the betterment of society through technology leading to better communication and more common ground, the global fight against shared problems and the increasing globalisation of society will make wars less frequent and eventually cease to be. I am too much of an optimist even for myself sometimes. Could we ever get to a place of balance where there was enough for everyone and therefore nothing to be fought over? Are the economics of war and defence such that they are too big a machine to stop, or will working together to help Homo sapiens survive create the nirvana we have all been waiting for? The core desire of supposedly every beauty pageant on the planet is world peace. One might argue that the use of AI for conflict must surely mean that we could also use AI for peace. There is a push for #tech4good, #drones save lives, and #AI for good on the social media channels of tech evangelists, and the move into Industry 5.0 means profit for purpose is becoming a business validation. Call me a dreamer, but somehow I know that when we work together as a species, there is nothing we can't solve. Get back in the driver's seat. Cyber warfare is an increasingly malevolent threat. There are even hypnotic maps tracking cyber threats live. A good one is threatmap.checkpoint.com. A good starter for a dinner party conversation, perhaps. There are plenty of things you can do to reduce your risk of cyber attack. It almost goes without saying that you should never give out your details over the phone. If you aren't sure if a call is genuine or not, hang up and call the actual entity they say they are calling from. This all sounds easy as pie, except I remember trying to educate my grandmother about her mobile phone and text messaging and her total lack of confidence with technology. It's a worry. Make sure you have antivirus software. Set your smart devices that they complete software updates automatically. Never click on links that come in text messages, emails, or DMs from people you don't know. Even if you do know the person, text or email them back to check that they sent you the message if you see that there is a link attached. Multiple factor authentication, MFA, is a saving grace for all your socials and your web-based emails. Make sure you have rescue emails and verification set up. It's so easily done, only takes a moment, and really helps protect you. Also, next time you're visiting your parents or grandparents, ask them about cybersecurity and set up their verification processes for them.